Hello, good morning to all of you out there. My name is Mike Weller, and I'm a partner in the Accounting and Outsources Department here at Maynard Costerisan. And we're getting together this morning to talk about year-end payroll information here at 2017 and different things you need to think about. And then we'll talk about 2018 payroll tax issues that you'll need to be aware of. So we'll get started here, and the first item we want to look at is kind of your year-end checklist, just to kind of go through and think about the things that you need to think about for your W-2s and year-end payroll processing. Right now, it's really good to review your holiday processing schedule. Christmas falling on Monday might depend on when you need to process the holiday payroll or your year-end payroll and when that might fall. So look at your processing schedule and make sure that you have people in your payroll department that are going to process your last payroll of the year. You do want to identify the last payroll of the current year of 2017 and the first payroll of the new year, and so that you know when you need to have all your fringe benefits entered in to your payroll, if you need to do some payroll adjustments or corrections. So make sure you know when that payroll is. I also mentioned that you want to know when your first payroll of the new year is, so you can determine when the tax tables would be updated for 2018. However, this year, the IRS has already sent out a notification saying that they expect the 2018 federal withholding tables to be issued later in 2018. With the changes in the tax bill that Congress is currently working through, there's going to be some changes as far as the personal exemption probably being eliminated on the individual tax return, and so that affects your federal tax withholding tables. And so the IRS is already saying that your withholding tables for 2018 will be issued sometime in 2018. They're not saying when those are going to be available, but they will be issued sometime in 2018. So we'll have to work through that, and we'll keep updated on that information. This has happened before. Back in 2009, there was a making work pay credit legislation that was passed, and so the 2009 withholding tax tables were delayed until those could be updated and fixed for the bill that Congress passed at that time. So we need to look forward to that in 2018, and we'll watch for when those payroll tax tables become available. But until then, you have to use the 2017 federal tax tables. You also need to look at your fringe benefit items, your group term life insurance if you have that, personal use of company cars, if you have education assistance programs, any year-to-date corrections that you need to make, any payroll checks that you might need to avoid that are still outstanding in your bank reconciliation, if there's any manual payroll checks that were written that haven't been entered into your payroll, and then if you have any third-party sick pay reporting, you need to consider those items so that you can enter those into your last regular payroll run, so that Social Security, Medicare, and other taxes can be withheld from the employee's pay if necessary. You also need to remember that if you have a health savings account, the employer contributions to health savings accounts should be reported on the W-2, and you'll need to pick those items up. If you're processing your own W-2s and such, make sure that you've ordered the forms. I've checked, and our forms have been ordered, and our forms have arrived, so we have them in-house, and it's time to make sure that you have your forms on site if you're going to be printing off W-2 forms or 1099 forms. Just to also remind you that you should have notified your employees by December 1st to review their W-4 status, and if they wanted to change their withholding taxes, that you need to have them fill out a new W-4. And we'll talk about W-4s here a little bit later this morning. Also, you want to make sure you schedule a preliminary processing of W-2s. Make sure that things are lining up properly and that the right numbers are going in the right boxes. So, look at that, and then just a reminder to make sure you have enough postage when you mail your W-2. Now on the next page, I just wanted to remind everybody that here in Michigan, the state minimum wage, January 1st, 2018, the minimum wage is going to go up to $9.25. That's from the minimum wage of $8.90 in 2017. So if you're needing to adjust any payroll, make sure that the minimum wage amount is $9.25, January 1st, 2018. The federal minimum wage is still at $7.25, but because the Michigan is higher, we need to use the Michigan minimum wage amount of $9.25. Just a reminder as well that the Reporting for Healthcare Act, that still is around, and you need to report the employer insurance premiums, health insurance premiums in Box 12 Code DD. That includes both the employee paid portion and the employer paid portion of health insurance premiums. So make sure you include that employer item on your W-2s. Also, in regards to the PATH Act that was passed several years before, it had moved up the filing tax deadline for W-2s and 1099s. So W-2s are required to be filed for the employees and the employer copy by January 31st to the Social Security Administration. Also, any 1099 miscellaneous forms that have amounts in Box 7 for independent contractors, those 1099s miscellaneous are also required to be filed by January 31st of 2018. So just remember, we had that last year where we had the early filing date, and that's trying to help with the identity theft issues and to get the information reported earlier to the IRS. The federal government is still talking about truncated Social Security numbers on W-2s, but so far that is not happening, and so we'll still watch that and see when they possibly might truncate Social Security numbers on the W-2s. The annual changes, we wanted to make sure that for 2017, your Social Security wage base amount is $127,200. That's the maximum amount for 2017. And for 2018, that is going to go up to $128,400. Social Security Administration did issue amount previously of $128,700, and then a couple weeks later they sent out a corrected amount, and that corrected amount is $128,400. So make sure that you've got the right number there. There's been two numbers issued, and Social Security has sent out a correction, and so that should be $128,400 for 2018. The Medicare amounts are still unlimited. They haven't changed, still at the 1.45%. And there's an additional employee Medicare tax withholding for those that earn over $200,000. There's an additional 0.9% withholding that needs to be done on the employee's payroll checks for Medicare, and the employer does not match that. So that has also not changed. The 401k, 403b amounts for 2017, that's $18,000 with $6,000 catch up if you're age 50 or over. For 2018, that increases $500, so that goes up to $18,500, and the catch up amount stays the same at $6,000. If you have a 408 simple plan, then that amount is $12,500 for 2017 with a catch up if you're age 50 or over of $3,000, and those stay the same for 2018. There's no changes there for your simple plan. For the personal use of automobile, those mileage amounts have not come out yet. I'm still waiting. They should be any day now. We know the charitable activities mileage amount is still 14 cents a mile. That hasn't changed, and that's written into law, and Congress needs to change that. The next page is just telephone numbers and websites where you can get payroll information, and so we'll just have that there for your reference. The next page, on page 6, is publication 15. I want to bring this to your attention. This is where you can find information on employees, who are employees, on the depositing tax methods and frequencies, filing your Form 941, and many other items to look at there. I've also included the grid of various special rules for various types of service payments, types of service and payments, and how they're taxable. The cafeteria plan amounts in there, and talks about that. Employee business expense reimbursement amounts. If you have an accountable plan, those amounts can be exempt from taxable wages. Of course, if you have non-accountable plan, then you're going to have to make those as taxable wages. So, but this grid is very helpful in looking at different payments that you have that you might need to look at, and as far as federal taxable wages, Social Security, Medicare taxable wages, and federal unemployment taxable wages. So that grid is helpful for those few pages. I'm not going to go through in great detail on that, but I want to just highlight that in your materials. The next publication is publication 15A, and publication 15A is very helpful, again, in looking at employees versus independent contractors. What are the rules in having an independent contractor? It's important to know, important that you have written agreements if you have independent contractors. Government, Department of Labor, unemployment agencies are all trying to reclassify those independent contractors and make them employees so they can capture more of the payroll tax expenses. Also, this publication 15A covers exempt organizations, nonprofit organizations. It covers the sick pay reporting, what's required there for sick pay reporting. Also covers pensions, retirement plans, and talks about that. So very good publication to be familiar with, publication 15A. Also, we want to look at and highlight publication 15B. 15B is another publication to refer to regarding all your fringe benefits. So some fringe benefits here that you want to look at are possibly dependent care assistance, group term life insurance coverage amounts, health savings accounts, any moving expense reimbursements that you might have, and also then the personal use of auto, the cents per mile rules and commuting rules. So publication 15B is where you look to for your fringe benefits. The next two pages that I have basically talks about payroll tax reconciliations. These are extremely helpful in making sure that your quarterly payroll tax reports all add up and equal your W-3, W-2 totals. It's really important. The government does that. They take and they make sure your 941 returns match your W-3, W-2 totals. And if they don't match, they will send you a notice 3 years from when you filed those W-2s. So you want to make sure that those reconcile and that then everything agrees and matches. So the spreadsheet on page 11 possibly is which is kind of going landscape on the page. This is one that we use in our department for every client, and it gives us spaces to fill in the amounts from the 941 returns, from your 4 quarterly unemployment tax returns, and then your quarterly amounts for your 940 returns. So, and then your W-2 information goes in the top section of the reconciliation sheet, and then you're able then to make sure that your numbers all agree and match together. So very important to do that reconciliation. It prevents a lot of notices and a lot of trying to find your payroll information several years from now. The next page is reporting and taxation of fringe benefits. Just want to remind everybody that you can have a different benefit year for fringe benefits. For example, the personal use of auto, you can have a benefit year that ends in October, for example, or a benefit year that ends in November. So, for example, you can have December 1st through November 30 as your fringe benefit year, and so that gives you 12 months, and you can have all your employees turn in their personal use of auto information by November 30. That way you can calculate the information and have that included in a December payroll. If your benefit year ended December 31st, then you'd be getting that information in January and trying to go back into December and enter that information. So really highly recommend that you have a benefit year that ends November 30. Really helps with getting those fringe benefit information entered into your payroll W-2s and such. Also, you can include the benefits in with a regular payroll and use those tax withholding tables to calculate, or you can take and just enter the benefits in separately, and you can use a supplemental rate, the 25% federal withholding, and the state supplemental rate is 4.25%. On the next page we have is group term life insurance premium rate tables. If you have group term life insurance in excess of $50,000 that you provide to the employee, anything in excess of $50,000, you need to use this table to calculate the amount to include on the W-2. This table is a 5-year age bracket. It's going to determine you determine the age based on the employee's birth date as the last day of the calendar year, and to figure out which age bracket they belong in. And then this table is a monthly table, and so you can either enter this in as a monthly amount, or you'll need to calculate the amount on the monthly amount and multiply by 12 to get the annual amount that you need to enter into payroll. So just a reminder, this is a monthly table, and you'll need to multiply by 12 to get the annual amount. Group term life insurance is taxable, and so it'd be entered into as federal income tax wages, state income tax wages, and it will need to be reported in box 12, code C on your W-2. The next page is just a reminder of your third-party sick pay recap form. This is form number 8922, and so if you have third-party sick pay, then you use a third-party provider to pay that and report that, and then they report to you third-party sick pay information, so you can include it on the W-2 as well and pay the employer taxes. Then you need to take and use this third-party sick pay recap form to make sure that it helps reconcile the third-party payer W-2s and your W-2s, and helps reconcile that information with the IRS. The next page is just make sure that you're verifying employee Social Security numbers. The IRS is getting less forgiving and waiving penalties, and the penalty amounts are going up. So if your W-2s do not contain correct name and Social Security numbers, the employer may be penalized up to $260 for each incorrect form W-2. You know, if you disregard filing W-2 filing, you could be penalized up to $530. So they are increasing those amounts. I had a situation too where, for whatever reason, clients' W-2s didn't make it to the Social Security Administration. I'm not sure whether they got lost in the mail, whether they didn't process them for whatever reason, but then the IRS sends out a notice 3 years later saying that we don't have your W-2s, can you please file them? And in previous years, typically when that happened, we provide them a copy of the W-2s, and they take that information and everything is fine. Now they are actually sending out penalty notices once those W-2s are received because they're late. So we want to make sure that W-2s, and a lot of times now you can file those electronically, and that's the best way to get the information to Social Security Administration and make sure that those are filed correctly. To verify the Social Security numbers, there is the Social Security number verification service that's available online, and you can verify up to 10 names Social Security numbers online and receive immediate results. But you can also upload overnight files up to 250,000 names and receive those results the next day. So there's just information on that page on helping to verify your Social Security numbers. The next page talks about the Accu Wage Online program. Every year I kind of mention the AccuWage online program and that it's a downloadable program on your computer, and it's used to test your electronic W-2 file to make sure that the format is correct, that there are the numbers in the number fields and letters in the letter fields, and that there isn't anything that way that will keep it from being accepted electronically. However, there is not a downloadable program now. So the AccuWage is only available through the online, and this page talks about that online and how you're going to need to upload your information to be able to test that. So the downloadable program is not available anymore, and this is just information that talks about if you want to test your electronic file, how you're going to need to use that the AccuWage online program. Okay, the next page again is just a reminder about the W-4, and if employees have an exempt W-4, exempt status that expires, and employees will need to file a new W-4 by February 15, 2018 to keep their exempt status. And also if employees need to change the withholding amounts, then they need to file a new W-4 as well. As I mentioned previously, the W-4 for 2018 is going to be most likely delayed as well as the federal tax withholding tables. But if the personal allowance is removed for your individual tax return, and that changes the tax withholding tables, and it's going to change your W-4 as well. So you will most likely in 2018 at some point have to have all of your employees file a new W-4 form when those tax withholding tables and the new W-4 becomes available. So make a note and kind of watch that to see when IRS will release that information. Also, just a reminder for your Michigan W-4 form to, again, if employees need to update those, that's available. And then if you also have any local city withholding, then you also need to make sure that you have a W-4 form for that as well. So just a reminder to have those W-4 forms in your file. The next page is the State of Michigan new hire reporting form. Again, just a reminder that when you hire a new employee, you have 20 days of hire to file this form. This form can be filed online as well as mailed in. This information goes to the Office of Child Support so that if there is a child support agreement out there, then they know which employer to contact to let the employer know that certain amounts have to be withheld from the employee's pay. Also, if there's any government agencies must report independent contractors that they hire. Other employers may report if they choose, but government agencies must report independent contractors as well as employees through this new hire reporting form. On the next two pages, I've included Form 5094 and Form 5080. These forms are used to report your state withholding, sales tax information, use tax information to the state of Michigan. I've been dealing with a lot of state of Michigan notices regarding these two forms. Different clients are mailing in what they think is the right form, and it might not be the right form. And so I just want to remind everybody that the Form 5094 form is a payment voucher. That's used if you electronically file and send your state withholding, your use tax, and sales tax information. If you send that electronically and then you mail in a check for that amount, you would then use the this 5094 payment voucher. If you report your withholding, sales tax, and use tax information on a paper form, 5080, you would use Form 5080 to send that information in along with your check. So make sure that you understand those, which is the right form to use, and to mail that in if you're doing that, or if you're using electronically, if you're filing that and using the MTO, that seems to be working very well. Michigan Treasury Online is MTO. It's a new system that they've got up and running, and that seems to be working a lot better than their previous system that they had I think 2 years ago, and they're still trying to work through some of those transition changes, but it seems to be the new online system seems to be working out a lot better. The next form I just wanted to highlight was the Form I-9 form, U.S. Citizens Immigration Services form. Again, this is a new form that became available in August of 2017. This form now is good until August 31st, 2019. And so any new employees that you hire now, you need to have them fill out this new form that has the expiration date of 8/31/2019 in the top right-hand corner. Existing employees, you can just keep those old forms in their files and you're fine. But any new employees, you need to start having them fill out this new form for their eligibility verification and the new documents that they've added or taken away on List A and List B. Acceptable documents have changed a little bit. So make sure you look through that I-9 form and use this this current form that's now available. Okay, the next page I just want to highlight is the W-9 form. W-9 is used for the taxpayer identification number for example, independent contractors, and for any vendors that you're requesting this information from, so you can determine whether or not you need to file a 1099 miscellaneous form for them. Any corporations are exempt from issuing a miscellaneous 1099, however, except for attorneys and legal firms. If they're a corporation, you still will need to send them a miscellaneous 1099 for any services that they provide to you. The next form is the 941 form. Again, there really hasn't been any changes to that form. They added in 2017, they added this qualified small business payroll tax credit for research activities, and so there's a very small group of clients that can use that on line 11. But so far, there really hasn't been any other changes to the 941 return. I also too want to remind you that for the 941 tax deposits, that if you're doing year-end bonuses and such, and maybe you might have a larger tax deposit, if you have a payroll tax deposit liability is $100,000 or more, then you got to use the next day deposit rule. So make sure that you're looking at that, and when you're making your payroll tax deposits for 941, and make sure your deposits are included in on time. The next page is 941 for 2018, and again, there really hasn't been any changes for the 941 form for 2018. The other thing that is new, though, is that the filing address is going to be changed. So if you're mailing these 941 returns in, because you're in the state of Michigan, if you're located actually in Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Michigan, and Tennessee, and Wisconsin, the filing addresses have changed for those states. So you need to watch that and to make sure that when you file your 2018 form in April of 2018, to make sure you've got the addresses changed. You also want to note as well for your federal unemployment tax returns, your Form 940 return, the addresses have changed for the 2017 form as well. So look at your instructions there for your 940 return and make sure that the form gets mailed in to the correct new address as well. The next form that just want to highlight is the 941X. The 941X is used to correct any 941 quarterly returns that you might have filed. And so usually not a lot of people have to use that because everything's filed correctly, but just one hint on there, and that's just in the detailed explanation section. Just make sure that you follow the instructions on the detailed explanation and how you write that out. I've seen where the 941X form has been returned because they have felt the explanation is not correct and such. So that's the hint on the 941X if you have to file that return. The next form that we have is the Form W-2 for 2017. Really hasn't been any changes on that form as well. The one difference is Box 9, which is a verification code. You're going to find for 2017, they did a kind of a test or preliminary run in 2016. Some payroll companies, payroll processors used this box in 2016. 2017, you'll find that more software companies and payroll processing companies are going to be using this Box 9 verification code. It's a 16-digit code that goes in there in the W-2 box, and that's helping with identity theft. And so when the individual tax return is filed, then that verification code is going to have to be entered in the 1040 individual tax return, and so that will match that up with the W-2s. So that's the verification box that's being used, and so you'll find that some software companies are filling in that 16-digit number, and some still have not. It's still not completely required, but they're increasing the use of that box. The other box to look at in the W-2 and to remind you about is Box 13, the retirement plan checkbox. And you need to make sure that that retirement plan checkbox is marked if the employee is making a contribution into a retirement plan, or if the employee is making a contribution on behalf of the employee into their retirement plan, then that checkbox needs to be marked. You also want to remind you that looking at your W-2, that your federal taxable wages matches your state taxable wages, and also if you have local taxable wages, that those three boxes, boxes 1, box 16, and box 18, all match. Again, if you have multiple states, then you need to make sure all your multiple state wages add up to your federal taxable wages. If you're in a state that doesn't have state wages, state income tax, then you'll need to have marked that as a reconciling item. And again, if you have multiple local wages or such, then make sure you understand and reconcile why local wages don't match your federal taxable wages. So just kind of look at your W-2, make sure you're understanding the differences and how the numbers relate to each other and reconcile to each other, and all agree. 2018, the W-2, again, there's really no changes there. Again, the verification code box will probably be used a lot more, but that's, again, there's really minimal changes to your W-2. The next page is just your W-2 box 12 codes, a reminder of what different items need to be reported on your W-2. And some of the ones that we use are Code C, that's your group term life insurance over $50,000. You have your Code D, which is your 401k plans amounts, your 401k deferral amounts, employee deferral amounts. Code E is for your 403b deferral amounts. Code P is for excludable moving expense reimbursements. You have Code S for your simple plan, 408 simple plan amount, salary reduction, employee contributions. You have your Code W, and that's for your employee amounts that are going to health savings accounts, as well as employer contributions through a cafeteria plan. Those need to be reported in Box 12, Code W. Then we also have the cost of employer-sponsored health coverage. That's Code DD, and that needs to be reported as well. Not on this list is a new code, and that's a new FF code, and that's for qualified small employer health reimbursement arrangements. That's a QSEHRA. Again, that's a QSEHRA, qualified small employer health reimbursement arrangements. There's very few small employers that qualify for this and have a plan, and I think also it's something that was rolled out, but I think it's going to be IRS is going to do away with that as well. So it's kind of a short-term in and out for small employers. So very few people will use the code FF. On the next page is the W-3 form. Again, the W-3 form is the transmittal for the W-2s and has all the totals for the W-2s on that. Again, just a reminder that your W-2 forms are due Social Security Administration January 31st, 2018, and make sure that those get filed. Then we have the Form 1099 Miscellaneous. Again, this is the form that you would use to report any rental payments that you might have in Box 1. If you're in a franchise, any royalty payments that you pay in Box 2. Box 3 is used for other income, prizes and awards, or other income that is not subject to self-employment tax. We have Box 6 that is used for medical and health care payments. That Box 6 is used by insurance companies to report payments that they've made to, for example, medical practices and such. Box 7 is your non-employee compensation box. So this is used for independent contractors and payments that are subject to self-employment tax. Again, if you have anything in Box 7, those 1099s are due to IRS January 31st, 2018. Any other 1099 box numbers, those can be sent in later, or you can just do everything at once and get everything done by January 31st, 2018. Any payments to the attorneys can go in Box 14, gross proceeds paid to attorney. If you have a settlement amount and that's being paid to the attorney as well as their services, and you can't separate that out, it can all go in Box 14. Otherwise, your services paid to the attorney can go in 7, and any settle amounts can go in Box 14. Then the next page that we have is the Form 1096. This is the transmittal form for your miscellaneous 1099s or your interest 1099s or any 1099s that you send in. And even your W-2G is the 1096 is your transmittal for that. I did want to point out that in Box 7 on the 1096, it's kind of in the middle of the form, there is a box that you need to check that says Form 1099 Miscellaneous with a NEC in Box 7. That's a non-employee compensation in Box 7. You need to check this box. So again, the IRS is saying, please check this box. That lets us know that you have an amount in Box 7, Form 1099, and that it needs to be filed by January 31st, 2018. So that's that. The next page, just wanted to remind everybody about Form W-2G. Again, that's for certain prizes and awards. A lot of nonprofit organizations are trying to raise money, and so they have different raffles or they have different winnings and prizes and awards and things that they would need to report. So you'd use Form W-2G for that. The next page just kind of talks about the State of Michigan Unemployment Form UIA 1028. Again, this form has to be filed electronically, and so we've been doing that for last several years. And so just a reminder of your state unemployment tax filing, and nothing really has been updated or changed there. The Michigan unemployment has 2 different annual wage bases. If you're paid in all your unemployment taxes on time, then you have a taxable wage base of $9,000. If you owe state unemployment money, then you have to use a taxable wage base of $9,500. So you want to make sure that your state of Michigan unemployment tax balances are paid in full and you don't owe them more than $25 on that. The next page is just a reminder of the 1094C and the 1095C. So employers with 50 or more full-time employees would need to report the 1094C on the health insurance plan to tell whether the employees are covered in a health insurance plan or not. And we keep hoping this goes away, but it hasn't. and so we do need to make sure that if you're required to file this, that you file it. They are now having to send out penalty notices and such, and so you're going to see that happening as well going forward. So I just want to remind everybody of the 1099-4C. Just a few last things to note that you want to watch for. I've kind of gone through the materials, but I just have a few miscellaneous items that you want to keep an eye out for in 2018. One of those items is the federal unemployment tax surtax. Again, this tax was repealed back in June of 2011. That went away, that 0.2% surtax, but they are still wanting to restore that. So we just need to make sure we watch that and to see whether or not the federal employment tax goes up by 2% or not. So we'll just keep an eye out for that. The other item with W-2s for 2018, again, I mentioned previously that the possibly the Social Security number can be truncated for 2018. And in the current discussion as well is that they're also talking about replacing Social Security number with a new 16-digit number. So again, that hasn't happened yet. That's still in discussion. And with identity theft issues, the Social Security Administration is looking at issuing new 16-digit numbers for everyone. So again, just watch out for that. Another item that they're looking at is in 2018 is the 1099 Miscellaneous Box 7. Currently, if Box 7 is $600 or less, then you do not need to issue that 1099. And they're talking about wanting to increase that amount in 2018 from $600 to $1,000. So again, that has not happened yet, but they're looking at increasing that amount to where it's got to be more than $1,000 before you need to file that 1099 Miscellaneous Box 7. Last year we talked about the Department of Labor and the possible change that were to happen there for overtime calculation reporting. Again, nothing has happened in 2017, but they're still talking about that, and there's possible changes coming up in 2018 as well. So just watch the Department of Labor and the overtime calculation issues there. Possibly that might come out in 2018 sometime. Just a reminder that, again, W-2 and 1099 penalty increases. If the W-2 forms are 30 days late, it's $50 per W-2 form. If it's 31 days to July 31st late, it's $100 per W-2 return. And if you file your W-2s after August 1st and later, then it's $270 per return. So like I said, the IRS is looking to generate some revenue, and penalties are increasing, and they are issuing penalty notices. So make sure your forms are filed. They're also, again, with help with the identity theft issue, they are still discussing preparing quarterly W-2 forms. The way this would work is that the employer would prepare the quarterly W-2 forms each quarter, and then they'd provide an annual W-2 forms for the employee. So that's still in discussion. Not quite sure how that works, but it'll be interesting to I guess just watch out for that. And then the last item that I had, the FUTA credit reduction amounts. There were a couple states that I guess they had borrowed money from the Federal Unemployment Fund, and every year that they did not pay that money back, then their federal unemployment credit was reduced by 0.3%. And what I mean there is your federal unemployment rate is 6%. If you pay all your state unemployment taxes in on time, then you get a 5.4% credit. That basically means that your federal unemployment tax is 0.6% of the first $7,000 of wages. So all the states have paid back any money that's been borrowed from the unemployment fund, except for California right now. So if you have payroll in California, you'll want to watch that. But states had until November 10th to pay back the money they borrowed. The state of California has had a large balance out there, and their credit reduction rate is down to 2.7%. So that means that all the employers are paying a higher federal unemployment tax amount. So what California did this year was they had some bonds, or they did, I don't know, they came up with some cash. They paid the unemployment fund back by November 10th, but on November 11th, they reborrowed the money back. So they thought that was the way that they could get the their credit reduction, get that back stabilized. However, that is now in the court system, and we're not certain where that is at yet. So if you have any payroll in California with federal unemployment tax, then you're going to need to watch that little game that California was trying to play there, I think. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I believe that that is all the information that I have to provide for you. But again, there's a lot of changes that are going on right now with payroll taxes and year-end. And so keep an eye out with IRS notifications, and we'll try and pass those along to you as well as that information comes available. But I wish everybody well with their year-end payroll tax processing. And again, you can always contact me with any questions. You've got my information with my phone number and email address. And so send me any payroll questions that you might need any assistance with. So have a wonderful year-end, and have a good day.